Hey guys, just wanted to wrap up a couple things and basically just sort of give you an update on some of the players post game. Obviously, the game took a lot out of our players early. Lost some players early that to be honest with you, I was really pleased with the way the defense continued to play, considering we lost so many players early. As you know, Joe Dillon went down with a hip injury throughout the game. Matt Barnes suffered an ACL to Boris Lee, an MCL to Terrence Jones, another ACL injury. And then Lavoris Varnado had a shoulder. And that's on top of Tracy Walker, obviously, being ejected early for the targeting call, which I definitely do not agree with. But nevertheless, had some guys took a hit, and for our guys to come into the game, a lot of guys, Corey Turner, some of those guys didn't even expect to play, and they came in and played at a pretty high level, and we pieced it together. Didn't really even have a rush defensive end the last 3 quarters of the game, and was still pieced it together. Played pretty good defensively, but those guys will all be having surgery soon. Joe Dillon will not require, though luckily. 2 guys have already had season-ending surgeries or here at the end of the season that will require them to miss either part or most of the spring. That's Cole Prudhomme with the shoulder and Carlos Robinson with the hip flexor. So we've got some guys that are going to need to heal up this off season moving forward. So we'll get all those done here shortly. Some of them have already been taken care of. Now our focus turns to recruiting. A couple things. It turns to recruiting. We've got a big next month ahead of us, and so that'll be a huge focus right now in a dead period. But that is a huge focus, obviously, moving forward. And then completing the staff is another thing that I've got to get on here as soon as I can. Still waiting on some things to before I do that. But I've definitely got to complete the staff as we move forward and get into spring ball. Our team comes back January the 9th, and then our staff will be off the road the second week of February. And so once we get back from that second week of February, hope to be close by then to completing the staff and moving forward there. And then, between now and then, preparing for a great off season. So a lot of things to do here in a short period of time with recruiting, staff, off-season preparations, and then trying to find a little bit of family time in there for Christmas also. So busy next month as we get ready for an incredible off-season and hopefully a great recruiting day. So with that, open up any questions.
Can you address the winning 3 of the last 4 games to get bowl eligible and what that says about the team and considering the rest start?
Yeah, no question. And I was really proud, and we've said this a couple of times and well documented of how we responded. And be honest, our team just kept getting better, and by the way they've worked. And our expectations as a staff and as a team are higher than anybody else's. I can assure you that. We're the ones that set the expectations 4 years ago with four 9-win seasons, and so obviously our expectations are very high. And so now moving forward, finishing the season with some momentum, playing well in the second half of the season, especially with a lot of young kids that made such a big contribution this year. We're going to roll into next year with a lot of returning starters on both sides of the football. Probably the most returning starters and then probably the most returning production that we've had. So anxious about getting started in the off season.
Talk about how unfortunate the injuries are for those guys that in the offseason they can't really hit the ground running.
Yeah, we always hate that, especially when it happens in the last game of the year, because that's really a further setback. Luckily, they'll have some recovery time over the Christmas break, but you would love for some of those guys, Cole Prudhomme, Matt Barnes, some of the younger guys that have not played an awful lot. You'd love for them to have that type of off season where they could hopefully make some even more gains. But now they'll be able to do some work, and there'll be some things they'll be limited from doing. But nevertheless, you just hate that for any of those guys, especially when it happens late in the year.
What sets this season apart from your other years?
You know, one, and we've talked about it. Just every year is different, and this year you learn a lot about your team. You learn a lot about your coaches. Learn a lot about yourself when you're faced with adversity. You know, adversity really doesn't. Adversity allows you to evaluate a lot of the things that you're doing, and then when you see that you're able to right the ship and you're able to plug the leaks and you're able to turn it around like we did, then that gives your players, it gives your coaches confidence that, you know, not only did we didn't adjust the course, we just adjusted the sails. And I think that was the thing that we all saw as we continue to improve as a team. And some teams that go through the first half of the season like we went through, they don't ever improve, and they limp through the rest of the year, where we showed a solid improvement in a lot of areas, and ended up playing awfully well with a lot of good young players who I think are going to be outstanding. So I just think it was a year of learning to overcome adversity, and just like we've talked about, like life. So I thought some great lessons for our players that I think they're going to carry into their personal lives in the future, without a doubt. So. That is the only staff change I anticipate at the moment.
The players that are having surgery, Prudham, Barnes, Robinson, are there some others, and are they all expected this spring? I know you listed them.
Yeah, all the ones that we listed, they're having surgeries, probably will miss the majority of the spring. Now, Varnado could come back in a limited area. But most of those guys will not be able to go through a full contact spring practice. Now, they'll be able to do a lot of the off-season training, either parts of it, and still be involved, but it'll be certain parts of the off-season training that all those guys will be limited of doing, except for Joe Dillon. Even though he got injured, he'll be back and he'll be fine. Excuse me? Calais will miss the spring too. You know, we didn't even mention him, but he's a guy that had already had his surgery. So Calais another young guy that will miss the spring. He may be able to get a little limited stuff, but obviously no contact during spring ball.
Head Coach Elijah McGuire played his final game as Ragin Cajun. What has he meant to this program, and what do you think he's going to do moving forward?
Well, he's been the face of our program, and a lot of times, you know, when you see across the country, your top player might not always be the face of your program. He might be the face of your program in other ways. Our top player was the face of our program, and he played in his bowl game, and he cares about his team. He's a leader. I'm really proud of the young man, and he's just been an example for the rest of our players, and of how he's just worked, played, carried himself in the community. He's always been a team player, puts his teammates first, and he's always first one to compliment his offensive line or his teammates and his coaches. And so we're going to miss that guy more than just one way, more than just on the field. He has been such a great ambassador to our university.
Where's his fit professional?
I'm sorry, I'll come right back.
His fit professional.
Yeah, a lot. You know, he's going to have he's going to have a great opportunity, and you know, right now there's a lot of interest obviously in Elijah. I'm anxious to see where he falls and what team he falls to, but a lot of interest. He will be an outstanding player at the next level. He'll make us all proud. So we're really looking forward to seeing how that all shakes out. Where he ends up, obviously, don't have any idea at this time, or even where they project him, whether it's wherever they project him at. But he'll have a big role on somebody's team, and he's going to make somebody's team better. No, that's just now starting the process of that. Don't know how long it's going to take. Like I said, I definitely think that's a long shot, but it's definitely a long shot, and there's no shot if you don't apply. And the only thing to me that gives it a little bit of validity is the guy graduated in 3.5 years. If I'm the NCAA, I'm going to reward a young man for handling his business, taking his academics seriously, graduating in 3.5 years. And I'm going to say, you know what? Those 4 or 5 plays that you played, we're going to reward you for doing the right things and being a student athlete and give it back to you. Now, I don't know if they'll see it the same way I do, but that's definitely the way I see it.
Advanced
Well, you know, obviously we got 2 right now on campus with Jordan Davis and Deion Ray, as well as some other young kids. But Jordan Davis and Deion Ray would definitely have to roll into spring ball competing for the position. And like I said, Jordan's already got a whole last year where he competed every day for it. Came up a little bit short, and but he's definitely, as we know, has got the ability. And Deion Ray is developed this year and come a long ways. So, you know, we're still, and just like always, we're always recruiting quarterbacks, and we'll recruit quarterbacks every year, just like we recruit offensive linemen, D linemen, receivers, and so we'll continue to recruit quarterbacks in every other position. But moving into January 1st, it'll be Jordan Davis and Deion Ray and the rest of the kids competing for the position.
Coach, I know you can't talk about specific players or anything, but how big of a focus has it been for your recruiting staff to find some local talent?
No question. And that's always, we're very fortunate here to have such great high school football. You look at the teams here that compete for state championships and play in the dome year in and year out. It's really amazing with the type of talent we have here. But that goes back to the type of coaches we've got in this area. We do a phenomenal job as coaches in this area developing players. And that's well documented, not just for the players that we sign, that other schools come in and recruit and sign. And that don't happen without great development by our high school coaches in this area. We're in one of the best high school coaching areas, I think, in the state.
Okay, everybody good?
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Yep.